everyone. We are live. And we are
Today's
here.
guest is Douglas Robbins, an author, a man committed to his purpose in life. He's outspoken on several subjects, and I can't wait to get to know him even better. I'm going to start with the hardest question we're going to ask you today. Is that okay, Douglas?
I am ready. I am ready.
All right.
Eminem or Foo Fighters?
Oh, Eminem.
Oh, yeah.
All day long.
All right. And now the follow-up, Greg.
Okay.
Beatles or Stones?
I'm going to have to go Beatles. Stones are a great rock band, but Beatles are just all, a little more widespread.
Last week's guest answered that question with Foo Fighters.
Oh, no. Did you cancel it after that, I hope?
No, we asked him at the end. That's why we're asking you at the beginning.
Very good.
I'm of the opinion that Eminem is the Bob Dylan, or even in some ways the Samuel Clemens of our day. What do you think of that?
It's a loaded question. The man has a lot to say. A lot of it is some people might write off what he's saying as homophobic or vitriol or anger and whatever. And obviously some of it is just a persona he's kind of perpetuating as a rapper or an artist. But clearly he's a very skilled and gifted, has a skilled ear. And even Dr. Dre has said that many times about him. He rhymes things that most people would not put together. So is he Samuel Clemens? I wouldn't go that far perhaps, but probably not as funny as Samuel Clemens. But he certainly has his place in music history for sure.
All right, you guys.
Can Samuel rap? I don't know.
Is that the name of Mark Twain?
Yeah.
It just popped into my head. Yeah. Okay. All right.
You got it.
Yeah. You know what, though?
Will they be giving away Eminem awards at some point instead of Mark Twain awards? Probably not.
Plain or peanut?
But here's
these are important questions.
But
I'm going to go peanut.
But here's what I'm wondering. Like when Mark Twain was alive, he was obviously a celebrity. I'd say to the height that Eminem currently is. But did he have the sort of mythical element that heightens a character? Like you look 100 years down the road, maybe there is an M award because hip hop and rap has continued to thrive and be a popular soundscape to the planet.
Yeah. Well, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is clearly taking a nosedive. So who will kind of fill its place?
Well, to me,
the Go-Go's getting elected. I don't think things have gone right.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing: the Go-Go's, as far as, well, wait, they were after the Runaways. Did the Runaways write their own music?
Well, I don't know.
Because that was one of the things I heard about Go-Go's is they wrote everything, they played everything, which was very, wasn't often in a women's band.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So we've debated music pretty well. But here's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think, is a great excuse for a live night of music. All those people getting together, jamming.
True.
Yeah.
It's true. But it used to be about rock and roll. And now it's more inclusive pop and everybody else. But that's fine,
Well, as soon as they nominated, or didn't Jethro Tull win for Best Metal Band?
Well, they won. But that wasn't the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That was
You're talking Grammys now, Greg.
Jethro Tull is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is a shame.
Yeah,
I think.
Thick as a brick.
I think it's a big shame. But a lot of prog rockers didn't get in. Genesis didn't get in for a long time. Yes. Anyway.
Is Russian?
This brings up the idea of popularity.
A few years ago, yeah.
Okay.
Popularity contests and institutionalized popularity.
Yeah.
And I think that's relevant to the culture in the sense that people get attached to their ideas around belonging to certain groups based on cultural identity or and so we have our own favorites. We have our own things that we love that are outside of that. And I'm right there with you with Jethro Tull. Like Ian Anderson is a complete unique star in the bright sky of musical ideas.
Without a doubt. Yep.
You know, and really one of the greatest performers to stand on one leg ever.
And didn't have to stand on one leg. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, Douglas or Doug, which do you prefer?
Either is fine. I mean, Douglas is the official author name, but Doug is, you know, people call me Doug. Sometimes they call me Dougie after knowing me for 5 minutes. So,
Are you related to Douglas Adams?
I think it's usually the last names that are related.
Oh.
Tony Robbins, you know, but no, unfortunately, Tony doesn't call me back. No.
Oh man.
So what's the closest you've been on to like a motorcycle sojourn or a moped, you know, sojourn, like on the road?
Well, I love the question. I was hoping we were going to talk bikes and riding. And I love the name of the show, Moped Outlets, because moped doesn't really go with outlaw, you know, a bit of a contrarian. I have done many things on the road. So I'm going to give you, for instance, 2008, 2009, I'm in a horrible corporate job that's just sucking my soul out of me. Every day I'm exhausted, probably suicidal, just run out of gas, emotionally, mentally, just don't want to do it anymore. I'm just getting beat up by the company, beat up by the people I work with. Now, this was during the recession, 2008, 2009. Everything's crashing. I'm making pretty good money, living in a nice apartment, etc. And I just say, like, it's either me or this job is really what it came down to. And like I said, I was so just worn out. I was apologizing to customers because I couldn't, there was just too much stuff on my plate. The company just gave more and more and more, just abusing people. And, you know, I said, can I curse on your show?
Absolutely.
All right.
Fuck
God bless.
yeah.
So I just said, fuck this. Like, I am done. I don't care. You know, you just reached that point of no return. No, I'm not talking about the Kansas, the other prog rock band, who I love. But so I just said, you know, like, I'm done here. Like, I quit. And I even went in and I felt very emboldened by this. And it was 2009 when I quit. So the market was down. Jobs were scarce. I had friends who were mocking me, saying, well, you're going to quit in this recession? Like, that's crazy. And I thought to myself, like, you don't quit a job or get a job or anything because of what the economy or the recession or anything. You do what you have to do when you have to do it, period. I was a single guy, also didn't have, you know, kids to worry about. And so I said, you know, I'm done. And I even went to the big boss, who was the VP of the region. You know, I had hundreds, if not thousands of people under him. And I said, you guys lied to us. The job was supposed to be X and you're supposed to receive this much work, et cetera, et cetera. And I wrote out this letter explaining how they're screwing people, how they're taking money away from people, et cetera. And he was so blown away that I would have the balls or the backbone to come do this, but I had nothing to lose at this point. And I asked him for unemployment. And usually you don't get unemployment when you quit a job. And he didn't want me to go because I think he really respected what I was doing, because he didn't know. He's so removed from what everyday people are dealing with. And so I ended up getting unemployment, which I would have, you know, either way I was done. I put all my stuff in storage, left my apartment, and just said, I'm riding. Like, this is my answer. Like, I'm going riding. So I had a Suzuki V-Strom 650 at that point and hopped on it and rode for 3 months and just rode. And the beauty was I was receiving unemployment while riding all over the country. I think I did 20 some odd states, 13,000 miles, you know, camping all over the place. And it was just an incredible time because I was free. I was still writing. I had my little computer with me. And this was one of those times it was just like you're connecting to people. I went out to Wounded Knee. I went out to, you know, the Sioux reservation, and you just bond with people. People are so fascinated by motorcycles. If I was in a car, probably wouldn't have had these same interactions, wouldn't have had the same experience. But on a motorcycle, people are so drawn to you. And on the Sioux reservation, you could have, I live in New York, and you would have thought New York was a million miles away. It was just such a different world, and how these people are struggling. And even Wounded Knee was just this crumbling, structure, and the people would steal from it, and, heartbreaking. So to be able to do this was such a gift. And if I had been afraid and said, oh my God, what can I do? What's going to happen on the other side of this? And oh my God, I'm however old I am, 40 plus, you stop living when you live by those fears, because those fears will stop you from doing pretty much anything. But that was one of my big rides. I've done many smaller rides of 2+ weeks. And, but that ride was, I've, done the country before in a car, but, I went through Utah and Colorado and the Cascade Mountains of Washington, and out on the islands, the San Juan Islands of Washington. And it's a gorgeous country. I mean, there is so much to see, and so many cultures within the country. So that was probably, my best. I'm always so happy that I got to do that.
Yeah, it sounds like a real American experience.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And did you go further south of Washington? Did you make it down to where we are in California or not?
I did go down the Pacific Coast Highway. I used to live out in Washington years ago, but so I rode down Oregon, went out to, did the Olympic Peninsula, the whole rainforest, and went probably down maybe to San Francisco. And then I started cutting, I have cousins there, and then went through Yosemite and Nevada, and just stunning ride.
I have a question about your visit to the Sioux Nation.
Yes, sir.
One of my friends said to me that the ghetto is poverty. The reservation is even worse. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of a quote I heard from Viola Davis. She said there's po, and po is when you're poorer than poor. You're po. Was that your experience with visiting the Sioux Nation?
Yeah, I've been to a few reservations at this point, and that's a different world. That's a third world nation, and it's by design.
Are you saying they chose their poverty?
No. I'm saying
the oppressors designed it that way.
Yes, that's what they did not at all. They were forced, obviously, physically in other ways. That is extreme poverty of high mortality rates, alcoholism, very high unemployment, people living in shacks. Again, these are systemic issues. So I have a story that I have not finished, and I'll reveal a piece of it to you guys. It's called Native American Thanksgiving. But it's about redemption of how a lot of people have been treated. And there's something that happens, a big event that they kind of rise up, if you will, but not in a violent battle. They're saying, see us, see who we are. We are still here. But they go, I don't want to give too much away, but they go to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, because I always wondered, what do Native Americans do on Thanksgiving? So it's actually called the Day of Mourning for many of them. And most Americans have no clue that even exists. Some celebrate Thanksgiving, but many, it's a day of mourning because it's a reminder of basically the genocide. So long story short, this group goes to New York City and the Thanksgiving Day Parade to, let's say, break it up because they're tired of seeing it without being acknowledged. So they're sort of bringing their history into the present moment for people to see. But so you have Native Americans living on reservations, right? But the Native Americans see the ghettos as a reservation. And that's how they sort of addressed it to African Americans, that, you're on your own reservation. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm not on a reservation. He's like, that's where you live. That's what the projects are.
Yeah.
So I think there's again a systemic issue, once again creating these environments and sort of the boot on the neck, if you will, of these groups.
You're in a total alignment with the kind of the I would say editorial viewpoint or the ethos behind what we do here. If you want to go back later and listen to our Thanksgiving episode, you'll get a little bit more insight as to the level of depth we go to. And none of what you're talking about is surprising to us. Yeah. And it's really tragic to know what was lost in terms of the potential for human evolution when the gift of indigenous cultures in what we call North America was not fully received in the European immigration patterning. There was an opportunity for humanity to take on a whole new level of growth, and the opportunity is still there. We're sort of being brought around to it again now as we really address the way that we've treated the Great Mother.
Absolutely.
I want to zero in on something. When you made the decision to quit that corporate life and commit to writing, how sure were you that you would survive? And did you ever consider changing your mind and going back?
Well, truth be told, I did have to go back. I got married to a woman with a few kids, and really I was making some money writing, not enough to sustain that. And it was a very bitter pill to swallow because I had to go back to the industry that I was in and did not want to. My stomach would really turn over. I'd start sweating. I get tremendously anxious about having to go back. I didn't want to hit that button to send the resume, but we were so broke. My wife, who became my wife, and the kids, and it's just like, fuck, I got to do this. I got to take one for the team, if you will.
We'll go back to the moment when you left the corporate job and you headed out on this road trip.
Yeah.
There was something in your inner world which had you fully committed to this idea of living or dying by the pen.
Yes, sir.
So I'm wondering how that felt and whether you think that is a sort of axiomatic state of being for real creatives and for the individual, liberty principle overall.
What is Greg doing?
Well, I gotta quit because that spark of creativity and risk when you quit.
Yeah.
Do you feel that spirit is alive in your current life? Because I take it you're still employed in the industry you dreaded.
Yes, but I'm trying to exit again, and we sort of have a game plan. So hopefully that will happen in the next few months. But
okay, you said we, so you're still a family man.
Yes, she has not killed me as of yet. Yes.
So
the spark certainly can get a little buried, with bills and grind and the routine and focusing on things that are not about me and things I don't really care about or don't want to be invested in. But to get back to your question also, Mark, is the spark. So no. So the old line of survival, the artists, survive is like, you need money. It's just the crude reality that we live in. If you have a family, I mean, if you're 20 and maybe you could, make, work a couple days a week, at a waiter, whatever, and you have roommates and stuff, that's a very different game than if you're 40 or 50 and have a family and a mortgage. It's one thing to put yourself in jeopardy. It's another thing to put others in jeopardy. So, the starving artist really is a myth, because when you're starving and struggling and you can't make ends meet and you can't pay the bills and you don't have money for soup, that's not a place of creativity. That's a place of, holy shit, I'm going to be on the street soon. So creativity, for me, becomes secondary to, I need to survive here. Maslow's
hierarchy, for sure.
Exactly. So, so that's one thing, but does the spark also diminish a little when you sort of take on these roles that don't feel aligned with who you are just to make a buck or whatever? Yeah, that's a battle. And I think I often write about these things, the dichotomy of life, of trying to live that higher self, but right now I also have to pay the bills and deal with this asshole over here or something like that. That's a battle, because that seems to kind of close off, or can close off, that creative conduit. Because when you say so exhausted doing something that you don't like, and it grinds you up, and at the end of the day your back's hurting, you're exhausted, your brain's tired, you just want to go sit on the couch, again, not a time for creativity. So that's a fine line, and that's a tough battle that we all have to wage, to live a life of meaning and hold on to it, because it's easy. The world will stomp that shit out if you don't hold on to it.
So how do you hold on to it?
I'm gonna tell you a secret. Just you two guys.
All right. Everyone else, turn off the podcast now.
So again, truth. I love bringing truth to the table, because that's how we all bond. That's how we all grow. That's how we all connect. So I had moved to New York City. This was before I was married, etc. Had moved to New York City, all in. I'm going to make it writing. I had written a book called Dawn. I didn't really know much about writing or how to write a manuscript. So I'd written this book called Dawn. It was sort of about young love. My mother had just passed away a year or two earlier. So it was sort of an homage to her. So it was about young love. This girl's mother, these two college kids meet, and this girl's mother is dying of cancer, and yet she falls in love with this boy. So it's sort of this dichotomy of, how do you love someone when someone you care about deeply or love is dying? And then the father's kind of manipulative. So I didn't, so I wrote it as best I could write it. It was a sweet story, but it needed some issues, or had some issues. And I sent it out to agents and whomever else, and basically crickets, wait, hurry up and wait, pretty much. And didn't get what I thought was going to happen. When you're a writer or an artist, you think somehow the sky is going to open and, doves are going to be released, and nothing happens is what happens. Crickets more than anything, because the first battle is writing or creating something. The second battle is getting it out into the world, which is a whole nother beast. So long story short, I was lost. Like I didn't know how to deal with, didn't have resilience, didn't know how to deal with adversity in this kind of way. And I didn't know how to ask for help. So I was just kind of lost. I was partying, pretty hard in the city, and just lost. And I didn't. And then, I kept hearing information about, from guides and whatever, how do you make it better, and how do you do this? And I said, I don't want to hear it. It's a lie. Life is a lie. The dream is a lie. Fuck off. I turned it off. The worst thing I could ever do was that, because it was pain that was telling me to do that, right? Pain, fear, doubts, shame. And so for a couple of years, I didn't write. No, don't want to hear it. Things would come to me. Nope, don't want to hear it. And again, so what I learned, if you give up on your dreams, you're left with a million choices. Then I could be this, I could be that, I could be this, and they're all wrong. Because the only thing that you are here to do is to fulfill that piece of the puzzle, that gift you were sprinkled with at birth. So a couple of years go by, and I start writing again, because, if you lose something, it comes back to you. Well, I guess it's yours. So started writing a piece called The Reluctant Human. And it was about that dichotomy of the pains, the doubts, the regrets, but that calling is still there. That calling is saying, hey, man, go this way. And so that book is me kind of purging a lot of this out. And that's what really started the writing career, probably, was The Reluctant Human. Got on a couple little Amazon lists, and,
And were you able to establish a relationship with an agent at that point?
Mark, no, I actually gave up on that idea. And I gave up on that idea because, like, sorry about the cursing again.
Don't worry.
We don't give a fuck.
You know, they're just the gatekeepers, and the gates are old and rusty. And they're old and rusty because of self-publishing, because of this new world order of self-publishing, podcasting, etc. Anyone can do it. You know, you don't have to then be beholden to the old guard, the book, you know, the agents and the old publishing companies. And so much has changed in the publishing world in the last 10, 20 years. So I basically just bypass the agents. It's like, they're going to, first of all, when you get a book deal, I mean, unless you're like a big, well-known person, you get scraps. Like if your book, you get 5% of sales and your agent takes 6% of that. So you're talking, you have to sell a ton of books to do any revenue at all. So I said, no, I'm just going to figure out self-publishing, hire editors, hire book designers, and basically put a very professional product out there, just bypass the old guard.
And how's that working? So you've skipped through that and you've created what we'll call the modern publishing, right? The new digital age of publishing.
Yeah.
And it seems to be working for you. You're up to, from your website, I saw 6 books, and you talked about one that you haven't even let out in the website. So do you feel like you're going to do this for a while?
I haven't gotten out. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Do you feel like you're going to keep doing this for a long while to come?
Writing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to. You know, I also have a podcast you guys might know about, but that's what I'm here for. You might disagree. Someone else down the street might disagree. 5 other people might agree, but this is what I'm here for. Whatever these gifts, whatever this information, whatever, you know, the seeds I have to share, that's the best I can do on this earth, you know.
So are you saying that, kind of circling back to your secret you were only going to share with Mark and I,
yes,
that your secret is you are an author, and as long as you're writing, you are living that place of spirit and hope?
You know, yes, on a macro viewpoint. On a micro viewpoint, I still, you know, have some things to clear. I still have this other job. It pays me very well. I probably only work 3-4 hours a day. Pays me full time. It gives me a car. It gives me this stability, you know, bi-weekly checks. You know, you can't beat that, right? But again, at some point, if you want to swim, you got to let go of the wall of the swimming pool and say, and trust. And that's a thing I've struggled with, is faith and trust. You know, is there you know, something to fall upon? You know, I'm 50, I'll be 52 in a couple months. And
no, that's it. Rocking chair days.
Exactly. Got back issues, you know. But, you know, I think as I heal internal stuff, childhood stuff, crap that gets in my head, that chattering voice, the negative stuff, as I keep winning, I don't always win. Sometimes I lose. You take those pieces back and say, no, this is who I am. This is who I must be. And you take that kind of higher mind point of view, and it's as clear as day from there. When you get into the muck of the trenches of emotions and thoughts and doubts and what's happened in the past or whatever it might be, that's where the brain gets trapped. But the brain doesn't know that much about your future. It doesn't know anything about that. It just knows what it's been fed, you know, so it doesn't know what's around the next bend.
Is your wife an ally in your highest self?
We'll put it this way, Greg. My wife kicks my ass more than I do. So yes, I mean, she's always one step ahead of me, first of all. She's a business coach. She has a planner company. She has a marketing agency. I mean, she is balls to the walls, getting shit done, because she has her own vision of what life should be and what she's trying to bring to other people's lives. So we're similar in that way. And actually her marketing agency has been helping me a bit. And because I don't know how to do a lot of things, I'm not, I don't want to wear 50 hats. I'm not going to be an expert in web design, or something. I want to write, I always liken it to, if you're a baseball player, they don't say like, all right, buddy, you're great at shortstop, but can you go sell some brochures also and some hot dogs? And, can you work in the front office also? Like, it's too much. Yes.
This is what I'm wondering.
But yes, my wife, it pushes me hard. Yes.
Does she
She
support
wants
you
my
as
best. I want her best.
does she support you as an author? Is like that's the question.
Yes. Yeah. She believes in what I'm doing. She wants me to do it faster and harder. And I think in the last few months, I've sort of been picking up momentum because I have so many books I want to get out there.
Right.
And
That's awesome.
I'm 50, going to be 52. There's only so much time.
You might be dead tomorrow.
I just might be.
This is a good point, I think, to ask this next question. In Love is a Dying Town, the character Jim Bowen is facing a lot of challenges internally and externally. And how much of you is in that character? But more importantly, what do you think it means to truly love?
You're good, Mark. You're good. I think every character has some aspects of me. Things I've gone through, things I've wondered or cared about. And it's funny, my book, Narican, the sci-fi book, I was talking to my wife about it recently. She's like, I was like, oh, I didn't know that was interesting. That's about me. She's like, Doug, everything in it is about you. Didn't you know that? So yes, I think Jim Bowen is about me in many ways. So often I've felt stuck because he feels stuck. He loves his daughter dearly, but he feels stuck in this town. He feels stuck in this rut. He's an ambitious guy. He's a smart guy, but he's not living to his full potential. He wants to build skyscrapers in big cities, and he lives in a dying factory town. But he's doing the best he can do in the situation. So there's that. And I think that's, like I said, I often write about that dichotomy of people feeling stuck and they know that there's more in them than they're living, than their experiences. And it's usually the emotions that do that. It's the emotions that block us from, because the emotions say, no, don't trust that. And we'll have examples as to why you shouldn't trust that higher, more powerful place. What was your question about?
The other part is, in the context of that story, the real challenge that he's facing both internally and externally is, what does it mean to truly love? And so I'm asking you, Douglas Robbins.
Yes.
One, why was that part of the book? And then what are your thoughts about that? Because of course you're talking about your wife and your relationship. So I mean, that's where this is coming from.
What is it to love?
Love is obviously very broad, this elusive, thing that we all crave and experience in various ways. And to love, let's say, a child is innocent, they're dependent, they rely on you for guidance, for food, for nourishment. And I don't just mean food, but I mean love, ideas, how to live. And so I think that's huge, is commitment, sacrifice. It's easy to be kind of a narcissist, like, yeah, I'll take you somewhere, but I don't really want to take you there. That's not really showing love, right? And I think I used to be more like that. Yeah, I'll take you to your thing, whatever. And then want to leave 10 minutes later. Come on, hurry up, kid. Like, that's not showing love, right? We think we're fulfilling some role, but that's not doing it. Is showing love is, if the kid loves something, you say, hey, I love you enough to take you there, and we'll spend as much time as we need to here because it's important to you. But I think sacrifice is really a key component to love. And we can say that on a small family level, and we can say that on a global level as far as country and people sacrificing, going to war, and those type of scenarios, or volunteering. I think So obviously there are different types of love. You can love a friend, you can be in love, romantic love, and you can have a love of humanity that you're trying to help move forward. And I think that's what we're all trying to do here, is move humanity forward. But, it's just about commitment, is seeing someone. If you're only looking at yourself, how it's about you, then you got a problem, because love isn't about you. It's about a shared experience. And again, building someone up, whomever it might be, is love.
On that note, are you a father in your wife's children's life?
Yes. 2 of them.
So she has more than 2 children.
She has 3. So the oldest one, who will remain nameless, I've tried, but she doesn't care for me. But I also came into her life when she was 13, and it was just, there was a battle, and it was just, I think she got wounded in there, and there was some other stuff before I came in. So hopefully because we're actually very similar in many ways. But so we don't have much of a relationship. She hasn't really lived with us for years anyway. She finds me annoying, which, okay. If that's the worst she feels. She obviously thinks a lot deeper, but she only says that. But the other 2, we're great.
Another question.
Yes.
You had the choice while you were a vagabond on your motorcycle,
Yeah,
to keep doing that. And so what was you could have just gone from town, you get a temporary job, like when the, unemployment runs out.
yeah.
So what was the spark of change where you decided to land?
Well, I was dating someone at the time, not my current wife, but and again, I probably was more of a narcissist, like, this is what I need. And sometimes just doing what you have to do is what you have to do in life. But the girl I was dating, I think, understood, just like, all right, he's doing his thing, but he's coming back at some point. And so I probably could have kept riding. Now that you mention it.
Yeah, Greg always asks the tough existential questions, man. Watch out.
Yeah, man. I mean, I had an incredible time. I mean, like I said, I was on one of the islands, San Juan Islands. I don't know if you've been there, but just incredible. It's like the best kept secret in the country. I mean, like, very few people have even heard of it, and it's just stunning. I mean, you have whales going through there and eagles. I mean, it's just, the West, as you guys, hasn't been as around as long as the East. The East is 400 years old or whatever it is. I mean, the West is 150, 200 years old, give or take. So some of the areas aren't as built up. They don't have the old dying infrastructure that a lot of the East has at this point. But, maybe I wanted to get back to roots, perhaps. Well, there's also being the leaf on the water.
There's something about home and having a heart space that's shared, right? Like I really, really enjoy having a partner in my life. And I know Greg also has this same value system. And it seems like
not anymore.
Well, you want one. Don't listen to him. He still wants one. I know him. But there's this thing where that individual, like, quest, sort of on the road sort of vibe meets wanting to have a home. Yeah. And I don't think it's ever actually fully resolved. Like, if you're out on the road, you kind of want to go home. And if you're home, you kind of want to go out on the road. Yeah. And it's just these energies, these yins and yangs sort of shifting, and they can become an engine of fuel for creativity if you allow it, if you lean in. And I get the feeling from your storytelling that you're still living into that part of yourself by exploring these sorts of constant sort of dynamics that your characters take up.
I have a question for both of you. Is incongruent energy a constant in life?
I don't know. It depends on how you define it. Like,
well, you just said, like, when you're on the road, you want a home. When you're home, you want to be out on the road. Those are incongruent energies.
Well, when you look at it through the lens of the Tao, they're not incongruent. They're just
I think the thoughts might be incongruent. The energy, I don't think, is incongruent because it's how we're identifying what that means, right? What the definition is. You know, when we're out on the road, I don't think we want to go on the road so we never come back. I think we want to go on the road to experience and to see and to change routines, because I'm sure you guys know, you get into routines and jobs, oh, it just feels like so redundant, right? And routine, and you're in a rut. It feels like you get in a rut. But when you break it up, patterns, so it's all about patterns, right? If you break up the pattern and go, maybe you go do something different with your loved one or whomever, and you feel fresh, you feel renewed. Why? Because you're not experiencing the same drained experience that you know all the details about on a daily basis. So I think that's part of.
All right, that's why, because you have this, isn't that a fractal in the background behind you?
The picture?
Yeah.
Or the light?
No, the picture.
The picture is an Alex Gray painting. You can only see the main thing. And it's called Light Worker. There's actually a being holding a light stick. And there's a light energy like lightning going through him.
Well, because patterns seem such a part of nature.
Mm-hmm.
And yet what I just heard is this element of we want to break patterns. When we get into patterns, we get bored. So it's
for sure.
It speaks to me that there's this element of human nature that hasn't acquiesced. I don't know if that's the right word, but hasn't settled in to the natural nature of things.
Could be that we're always longing for something.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the idea that nature, that energy becomes stagnant is the key to that. When energy gets stagnant, that's when we get into that rut, right? Because you can be vibrant and have what appears to be, from external circumstances, to be very regimented, regular, boring life, very like khaki, spinach, mashed potatoes, that kind of life. Yeah. But the reality might be internally that you're really living in an Alex Gray dreamland. Like you're evoking things through music or art or painting or, lovemaking or whatever it is that are transcendent and have this lit up quality to them. So the way I see it is that when we get stuck, it's about energy's not moving anymore. And usually we've made that mean something about ourselves, or we're seeking a kind of safety that is neither safe, and it's sort of this diluted energy, this energy suck, this coagulant of life force.
If I may speak on that, absolutely. Because what do they say when you have wounds, you have a knee pain, it's stuck energy, right? With acupuncture, right? They get the energy flowing again. What is it when you keep having the same thoughts, the same problems? It's the same thing, energy stuck. How many times you repeat the same crap in your head, that you've been repeating for 40 years, right? Right. It's not having a problem. It's having the same problem that you keep repeating, and thus externally experiencing the same crap over and over and over again, right? We're reflections. Our lives are reflections of our inner world. So, but also the design of things, the design of, you work 5 days a week, you work 40 hours a week, you get your little weekends, you go grocery shopping, this is all just routines, right? And after, like, the human is an explorer by nature, right? We want to learn things. We want to find new things. We want to innovate. And if we're just kind of trapped in the mundane of, I got to do this thing again and again and another time tomorrow. And, that's why people work for the weekends, right? You're just grinding through to get to the weekend. Because how do we view the weekend? The weekend is like, oh, it's fresh and there's possibility in the weekends. And that's how the brain always works about the future, especially when we're younger. Oh, the future is going to be this and that and everything else and wonderful and clean and beautiful and happy, and right? Because it's not trapped in emotions. It's trapped in kind of in ideals. But when we live the day-to-day, it's the thoughts that we're repeating every day. It's the experiences that we're repeating every day. So we need variation. That's why we want to get on the road. That's why we want to go to a new restaurant. That's, like, we're not worker ants.
Yeah. All right. I have one more prepared question, but it's a big left turn. You ready?
Peanut M&Ms. I already answered that.
No. I noticed that you're extremely passionate about what's happening and the war on Ukraine. And today there's the Munich Security Conference that's about this very subject. And I'm wondering if you would speak a little bit about why you think it's important for Western powers to stand up and support the Ukrainians and what that means to you personally.
We, and I don't want to be crude, but America has been overrun by corporations, capitalism, and we've lost, and social media, and just watching some girl's big butt on social media or something. It's lost its focus on what its values are as we go down sort of the toilet of society. So when the Ukraine war began, this was Putin once again trying to take pieces of the old Russia back. And he's already gotten 3 or 4 of them. And we did nothing, basically. Chechnya, Georgia, etc. So Ukraine and what did we offer? We offered a ride, right? What did Zelensky say early on? I don't need, pardon me, I'm paraphrasing, a fucking ride. I need ammo. He's like, I'm not leaving. And so Zelensky, first of all, let's fast forward 5 years, and we did nothing. Nobody did anything. Right? All that does is galvanize Russia and authoritarian rule, same as China, who Russia and China are much more aligned these days. And so what does it say to the world? We're weak. We're spineless. Our convictions don't mean squat. And we're not going to do anything because we don't really believe in liberty. We say we do. But convictions only matter when you stand up for them. And when you stand up for them when they're up against something. It's very easy to say, oh, yeah, I'm into freedom. I really like freedom. Yeah, great. What are you willing to do to honor that? And it's the same thing with us and our own beliefs and desires to become something. What are you willing to do to honor that? Are you just going to roll over because there's a bully down the street like Putin? And so Zelensky, charismatic, he reminded us of who we claim to be, in my opinion.
So in a sense, what you're saying is that the catharsis is what actually brings forth that core element. That when we're left to the devices of TikTok or casual society, as we put it, we that part of us that is dynamic and able to raise the blood, it becomes atrophied. And so we're at this point now where we need to stand up for that because of principle and values for the Ukrainian people, right? And what I'm wondering about that is, what's personal about it for you? Where does it land for you? Is there a personal connection to Ukraine, or is this just this idea that the value system you have is reflected in the idea of defending liberty wherever it's needed?
Sure, there's that. I mean, there's that. But it hits me deep in my gut that these are people who need our help, and they're asking for our help. And if not, they will fall, they will be murdered, they will be raped, they will be plundered, and it ain't going to stop there. Bullies do not stop bullying because they got the next piece. They keep going until they get everything they want, and they never fill that cup. So would you? No, I do not have any relations to Ukraine, but I have relations to humanity, and these people. And in my opinion, we should be doing more. Everyone should be doing more, because all we're doing is prolonging this. the longer this is prolonged, the more people die, the more suffering, etc.
So do you also consider places like Tigray and Ethiopia and the Congo, where these same sorts of totalitarianist, capitalist fueled, human rights abuses or crimes are committed? Do you find them all equally as important?
Well, in truth, I don't know as much about them. We don't see as much about them. But yes, I mean, there would be, anytime there's a crime against humanity in such a way, for me, it comes back to this, like, what are we trying to do here on this earth? And what are we trying to do? Like, all organizations, families, schools of fish, corporations, baseball teams, it doesn't matter what they are. They're trying to preserve and enhance. They're trying to evolve. To me, that is the whole purpose of humanity, is evolving. That is the purpose of our lives, to evolve, to move forward. And so, I mean, can we be everywhere at once? Of course not. We have, we are limited and, et cetera. But we need to bring these things to light, because that's how you address any wound. That's how you address any injustice, is you bring it to light. And this is kind of what I'm saying, is we have the toilet bowl, the cesspool of nonsense, of garbage attention, of garbage, irrelevance, of taking up all of our time and attention, of looking at this social media person and that one, and she's smiling, and this person, it's crap. Like, it's me. And so to me, that's the shortcoming. Can we save everyone from every wrongdoing? Of course not. We have plenty of things here that we need to address, like we were discussing, Native American and African American, etc. But the point is addressing it and bringing it to light. And, you can blame the media, you can blame social media, and sure, a lot of these things are just to make a buck. That's media's. There's so much competition now. I mean, years ago, there was 4 stations or whatever. Now there's bazillion places where you can get quote unquote information, and half of it's wrong anyway. But no, I mean, I think with all things, it's important to address this, because to me, our government should do more to bring truth to people. Truth is, here's the thing. Sorry, I'm going to get on my little soapbox. Truth.
Well, I invited you on the soapbox, just to be clear.
Thank you. So, you have this thing about false, fake news, right? Fake news. Well, part of this, are you a fake news guy?
No, I'm just laughing because our leader a few years ago, like that, I think he brought that term into social consciousness.
Leader, yes.
So it's just funny to hear all these juxtapositions.
Yeah. But like, fake news is very dangerous, right? Because they've done studies, they can't tell the difference between what's fake and what's real, because it's presented in the same manner. It's presented as news, facts. And I think that's a bit, yes, Craig?
I would say, though, that what I think the three of us have learned is that there are gatekeepers to media. Mm-hmm. And the history books of 8th grader from 10 years ago were pretty whitewashed. And so I would say fake news has been prevalent from day one.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
From when Cain slew Abel.
That might have been fake news even. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so there's this dichotomy here, which is we get so wrapped up in protecting ourselves from fake news that we end up actually compromising the core values of an open, truthful exchange of ideas. And I would much rather be able to talk to my neighbor about the things that they think and believe, even if they are wrong, than to limit their capacity to express themselves, because then that means that if I'm suddenly saying things that's not approvable by the masses, that I'm limited. And I think that's a foundational piece to what makes our country great, and the promise of a bigger hope for humanity is this idea that somehow we'll get smart enough to discern and be able to, reason or critically think our way through what people profligate to us. And that's really the issue. Isn't the media and the propagation of fact that's not fact. It's actually the defunding of education. It's the
Sure.
diminishment of education in the United States and other places.
When you whitewash history, you're not, the kids, they can't handle this. The kids can handle it just fine. The kids need to know this. They want,
and they know much of it anyway, because they can see through our bullshit.
Right. So, to me, if you grew up, somebody told you 2 + 2 is 5, and they beat it into your head thousands of times, year after year, you're going to fight someone to the death who says 2 + 2 is 4. You say, no, you're an idiot. Clearly, it's 2 + 2 is 5. Everyone knows that. And so when you are now, reality is a whole other question of religion and all these other things. What happened, what didn't happen. But there are certain things we can know. And when you have fake or false information that hits your narrative, hits your emotional narrative, maybe you're a white supremacist and whatever, and you're hearing all these things that feed that. Now you're justified in your beliefs and in your actions. Hence January 6th insurrection. So when you have, and people believe because you're hitting their emotions, you're hitting their fears and triggers, then they're going to act because they feel justified with the information they have. I guarantee if a lot of those people had heard different information, they wouldn't have been there. And so to me, like the biggest key is information, because that's the only thing we have to act upon, to make decisions upon. If you have the wrong narrative or the wrong information, and it somehow matches your narrative that you want to believe, then that becomes your viewpoint, even if it's totally false.
Well, let's just say it. Our narrative has been sculpted for 200 years.
I mean, it's always, but it's gotten worse lately with social media, because you have Russian bots, you have all sorts of influence coming from all over the place to manipulate elections and everything else. But my point is, like, say like Fox News or CNN or whomever, I don't really care. They're going to perpetuate whatever stories that suits them, right? That they feel like their audience is going to suck up and eat up the most. Now they're trying to make money. I mean, they're selling drama, they're selling conflict. They're not necessarily selling things that people need to learn. And they say, oh, it's a 24-hour news cycle. Yeah, but it's the same shit you've been showing all day. So it's not really a 24-hour news cycle. It's the same crap you keep showing for 24 hours. That's not new news over 24 hours. But this is what I come back to, is they're there to make money. I get it. They're there to sell something. Critical thinking is a problem because most people don't seem to have a lot of it. And then for me anyway, I still trust the government more than I trust corporations in general. Because the government still has an opportunity. They're still the ones that create, environmental, laws and whatever resolutions on XYZ. Censorship or the food industry. You have to have certain things in place to make sure the food is clean and doesn't have E. coli. So I still feel like the government is the very important facet that can provide truth. And I'm not saying they're going to, but I'm saying they can, because ultimately they are supposed to be for the people. Now, I know that's a pie in the sky kind of idealist thing, but if you didn't have all the money, obviously going into the government from corporations, and always if people were not running for re-election constantly, it's our last hope, really, to find that truth. And not to get political.
I'm going to push back on that.
That's fine.
We are the last. We're the last hope, because we are
okay, Mark.
Right. So we've got to take personal responsibility for our 5 meters of influence, right?
Sure.
So I'm going to bring this all nice and neatly into a whirlpool of love. How does all of this political, sociological context inform your need to be a writer?
Writing is an interpretation, a filter of what I see and what I experience. And so I don't typically write about fancy people who are good looking and have millions of dollars and save the day or whatever, because that's bullshit. I don't care about that. I care about the blue collar guy, the alienated people, the people on the fringe, the backbone of the world. Those are the people I care about. Huh?
The grit.
The grit.
Did you guys just call the common people dirt?
He did. I did.
I told them find sandpaper.
We're from the dirt. We'll go back to the dirt. No, of course. Look, the truth always. Well, the conversation starts with us, and obviously there are plenty of good corporate leaders and everything else, and everything is just comprised of people. Corporations are not separate from people. Governments are not separate from people. They might want to separate themselves, but we are all just people. So that's what I'm saying. I think is that conversation about moving forward is the key of moving forward. Because if not, you just have these endless conflicts and endless divisions.
Well, it seems like a lot of the themes that you choose in your writing have human aspiration and love, and this idea of liberation from the yoke of capitalism and the yoke of stupidity. Is that really the nut for you? Is that the basic reason that you write, is to be a storyteller for that part of the human condition?
There's nothing about capitalism per se. Not like, capitalism is evil. There can be evil aspects to it. 100 years ago, there were no child labor laws.
Yeah, I'm asking about your writing.
You know what I mean? So my writing, though, so it's not saying, something bad about capitalism, but my writing is about, again, people healing, overcoming challenges, moving forward. The book Narican is about the evolution of souls. So that's always a key factor in everything that kind of drives me.
Beautiful.
I was listening to a book by Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he had this concept, which I loved. I just heard it this morning, of biologically speaking, genetically, we're very similar to a chimpanzee. And yet we base our intelligence on far beyond a chimpanzee. Like a chimpanzee will never be able to do long division, no matter how hard someone tries to train them. But what he said is maybe this is what I heard at least, the emphasis we've put on that kind of academic intelligence might be a mistake in human consciousness if we are so close to a chimpanzee biologically. And when one looks at the infinity of the universe, so if the vastness of the universe is X, and we're looking at how close we are biologically to a chimpanzee, like as Y, then perhaps
Y plus 1 is fairly insignificant.
Well, right. Like that was it, is like, perhaps our human intellect has tangled us up a bit, and the emphasis we're placing on our importance is misplaced.
You mean in the universe? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't put our importance that high, but
well, even then in our personal life.
Yeah.
Like, I have 3 children, and there's times where I question my love for them. Am I, it's like you were saying earlier, that internal struggle of what is and what I want to be. And maybe in letting go of my importance, I come more into the natural realm of the universe.
Yeah, letting go of the ego is always a key factor, I think, in love. The ego is not love, you know.
Is there anything that you would like to touch upon that we haven't before we end this episode?
Talk more about capitalism, Mark. No, I'm kidding. No, it's been so great because you guys are just throwing a million things out there, you know. And so it's great just sort of following the bouncing ball or trying to. No, I mean, you know what, again, like I always just come back to like, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to accomplish? To get back to the Zelensky thing, what we're seeing is he's the best that we all aspire to be, right? He's showing us the way, how to be strong, you know. So this is what we all need. The world needed to see that again. Instead of bickering, seeing this man saying, I'm going to stand tall here with my family and with my country. Again, convictions. What are our convictions as individuals and as a society?
If it's okay with you both, I have a last question.
I'm in no rush. I took the day off anyway, so.
Well, all right, here it is. Sex Pistols or The Clash?
Oh. I'm not going to say I know either of them that well.
That's it. It's over. Forget it.
If you
Clash.
said the Ramones,
It's the
I would
Clash.
just go with the Ramones, but
Yeah, it's the Clash for sure.
yeah. That's what I probably would have said, but you know, anyway.